Welcome back to Applied Econometrics class. So we are still on the interpretation of the estimated regression model coefficients. So we have been using a bivariate linear regression model for this. So we are still on level model, also known as linear model. So in this class, basically we are going to be treating another case, that is case 4. Okay. So where both our dependent variable y and the independent variable x are expressed in percentages. They are expressed in percentages. So how do we interpret? So let's say we have this estimated model, which is beta 1 hat plus beta 2 hat, then we have x. So how do I interpret this model if both variables are expressed in percentages? So it's very simple. Okay, so the general interpretation is that on average a 1% point change in variable x is associated with a 1% percentage point change in y. Okay, now let's look at a particular direction. What of the case where our beta 1 hat is greater than 0, that is when it is positive? So how do we interpret? So the interpretation goes thus, that y is positively related to x, then on average, y is positively related to x because beta 1 hat is positive. That's on average. On average, we have a 1% point because it's measured in percentage increase in x is associated with beta 1 hat percentage points increase in y. So and vice versa. So vice versa implies that this can be also be interpreted as a 1% point decrease instead of saying increase. Decrease in x is associated with beta 1 hat percentage point decrease in y. So because this is a linear model, there's a model that's linear in parameter. So what of the case where we have our beta 1 hat less than 0, that is positive? So the interpretation goes thus: y is negatively related to x. Then we have on average a 1% percentage point increase in x is associated with beta 1 at percentage point, because this is negative, it's going to move in opposite direction of the change in x, so it's going to be decrease in y. So, and vice versa. And vice versa. So usually you don't find this vice versa in interpretation in econometric textbook, because it is assumed that you know, reader knows that he or she is dealing with a linear model. Let's say model that's linear in parameter, that whatever happens to the increase side will also happen to the decrease side in terms of magnitude. Okay, so take note of that. All right, so let's take a numerical example. Let's take a numerical example. So let's assume that, okay, yes, let's start. Numerical example of this case. So, numerical example of this case. That is case 4, where you have both y and x are expressed in percentage. Okay, so let's say we have a numerical example. Let me write out this example. Let's say we have interest rate. This case is for, you say, when beta, okay, so let me write it. So numerical example where beta 1 hat is greater than 0. So we have this, we have interest rate, then we press on inflation rate. So we have 1.25 plus 1.2, then we have inflation. So how do we interpret this estimated regression model? Is very straightforward. So the interpretation goes thus. Interpretation goes thus. Okay. Now interest rate is positively. Interest is positively related to inflation. It's positively related to inflation. Okay. Then so I have that on average, a 1 percentage point increase in inflation is associated with 1.2 percentage point increase in interest rate, okay, and vice versa, okay, and vice versa, okay, and vice versa. Okay, now what of a numerical example? When we have a beta at 1 less than 0, that's when it is negative. So numerical example, let's say we have whereby inflation is regressed on interest rate 28, 1.68 interest rate. Okay, so how do you interpret that? interpretation. So that becomes that inflation is negatively related to interest rate. Okay, that on average, a 1% point increase in interest rate is associated with 1.68 percentage point decrease because of the sign. Decrease is more the other direction of the change in interest rate. So decrease in inflation. Okay, so this and vice versa. So then put that in bracket. Hope that is clear. So this is the end of level regression model interpretation. So in the next video, we'll be talking about log level regression model interpretation. Thank you. See you in the next class.